Alright, so this project is for a cupboard to go in a dining room area. So it's got general storage, shelves and shoe racks at the bottom. And one of the parts of the brief was that the client really liked the idea of having some splits which would be filled, possibly with an epoxy resin. And so I saved some of those pieces which would be most suitable. So here is the planks which I used for those door fronts. The centre board is the one I used the most, I believe. And it worked really well. So this was from 27mm oak, and I was able to get 3 laminations out of each board. So what I'm going to do is try to show you some of the main stages which we went through from start to finish. Obviously there'll be loads of stages which I can't show because the video would go on for so long, but hopefully you'll get a feel of how a job like this is made. So the first steps are selecting, roughing out, surface planing as I'm doing here, thicknessing, and then bandsawing the veneer. After bandsawing, then the oak veneer is then put through the speed sander, which calibrates the thickness down to about 3.5mm. And to get to this point, there's a huge amount of work. Creating your own veneer really is such a long process, but it gives a really lovely result because you have that thickness of material, and it allows you to do things which with solid timber wouldn't really be feasible. So the next step is laying and arranging the veneer. And this is a stage that I really enjoy. The objective for this project is to have an arrangement which is as random as possible, both of the splits, the figuring, the colour, and just a general feel. So that took quite some time. Once that's done, I then shoot the edges in by hand plane with my trusty old jack plane set up really sharp. And that does a great job of getting the boards or the leaves of veneer square along their edge, and also with a very slight hollow along their length. So that means that when I use the tape here, and you can see me applying a little bit of pressure as I pull it across the joint, that acts as a clamp. So you apply it, pull it across the joint, and then push it down. And if you use the tape quite closely to each other, that is a very effective clamp. And as you can see, I use that on both sides to pull up the glue joint tightly. After that glue has gone off, I can then take off the tape, remove any excess glue, and then the board, it acts as a one whole sheet, which is really nice. So next is gluing down the oak onto the 18mm birch ply. It's really important that you get a very even distribution of the glue. I'm using a PVA glue here, Type Bond 3. Once I've placed the oak, which is about 2mm overhanging all the way around, I then do the same on the other side, tape the corners in position so it hopefully doesn't move. And then I'm carefully placing it in the centre of the veneer press. So this is a fairly new purchase of mine. It's a lovely old thing, and it basically works by these 3 separate platens which you clamp down, as you can see here with the lever, to apply a huge amount of pressure onto the surface. Works really well. So once I've taken the veneered panels out of the veneer press, I then dimension the doors to their final size, and then it's on to filling the splits with the epoxy resin. It's had a black metallic pigment added to it to accentuate the feature, and it's quite a long process just to make sure that I've carefully filled all of those voids, and going back over it a few times just to check that there's not any areas where it's sunk. Once that's done, it takes about 36 hours to cure. So once that's happened, I then put it through the speed sander to gradually bring it down to be level with the oak. You can see there I'm checking it to see if it's flush, and this is the final pass. It's then all the door edges are then softened and ready, and then it's on to lacquering. So I'm applying a product called Skilt, which is like an invisible finish, so it will be a very similar look to as if there'd been no finish applied at all once it's all dried and fully cured. So next up is machining the oak for the window seat, the shelves and the shoe racks. So this panel is going to be for the window seat, and I've chosen quarter sawn oak for this panel because it's going to be in quite a bit of sunlight, and so I wanted to have a panel that would move as little as possible. There's also some beautiful medullary rays in the timber, so I kind of liked making the feature of that. So once I've selected the arrangement and marked up with the pencil the order of the panels, I then go to the surfacer to edge the edges, and then it's on to gluing up in the sash clamps. And so basically I'm gradually applying pressure here with the sash clamps, checking for level, and then having clamps above and below to get a nice even pressure. That takes about 5 or 10 minutes per panel, and then it will take about 6 to 12 hours to fully cure. So next we're on to site work. So because this cupboard has to basically be built on site, it's a case of accurately cutting all the parts to size and then getting the cupboard ready to take the doors. So the final stage of this project on site is to line the window area with the oak. Now we couldn't make these panels in the same way that I made the window seat because there wasn't the room available. Because the structure had already been built, if I'd have used say 20mm thick panels, it would have overhung the aluminium frames of the windows, so that was a no-go. So the solution was to use more of the veneer that I'd prepped in the workshop, and this was quite a lengthy process and needed a combination of approaches to make it work as successfully as possible. But I was really pleased with the results using a hybrid glue to glue down onto the ply structure, and then PVA to glue the joints. Here you can see I'm fitting out the sort of small cubby hole. Then the whole area was sanded really thoroughly, first by orbital sander and then by hand, just softening the edges and making sure everything was then ready to apply the 3 layers of Skilt. Okay, so I hope that's given you a good overview of some of the stages involved in this project, and hopefully you found it interesting. Certainly I really enjoyed making this project. Lots of challenges, which is always good.